Hello, William.
Hello, Lilou. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you for accepting doing this interview because you're a patient and a practitioner of something that is called the Aquarian Age Healing BioMechanics.
That is correct.
So I'm very intrigued as to what that is. Could you explain us?
Biomechanics is it is a study of distortion in the body. Basically, its causes, its effects, but most importantly, the means of its correction. And it's done with energy medicine, done with a touch less than the weight of a dime. It accesses the atomic, structural, and cellular memories in the body and enables it to unwind like a mainspring in a clock gradually over a period of time once the body's computer is opened up and accessed.
So you're coming from the assumption that our body is disaligned and
Actually,
locked.
I'm coming from the assumption that with measurement and co-measurement, which is how we do this work, that the body is out of line, and I'm able to determine the exact center of balance in the body as a result of these measurements. And once that's done, basically just give the body the information, and it follows the repatterning to bring itself back into balance,
Naturally.
and does it all by itself.
So the body really has this automatic and natural way of realigning itself once you help it to start the alignment?
I like to call it the innate wisdom. The innate knows everything that you have gone through in your body since you were born. And once we access this information, basically it's kind of like turning on your computer. If you turn on a computer and you don't get into a program, you just have an icon that kind of bounces around the screen. But once you get into a program, which this would be kind of considered healing, the body back to its original source energy, and these memories are accessed, and it will reprocess, repattern, restructure, realign, and rebalance from the tip of your touch to the top over a period of time.
So is it based on quantum physics at all?
I think everything is based on quantum physics. Quantum simply meaning that we're doing multiple facets of things at the same time on different levels. And since the energy is already imposed on the cellular memory, and that cellular memory is accessed, it, innate wisdom, knows what it needs to do to bring itself back into balance.
So where is that innate wisdom coming from?
The divine spark in your own heart. We are spiritual beings going through a physical experience, and whenever we kind of run into a little roadblock, that could be an injury of the sacrum, and the translation for sacrum is sacred bone, Lilou. And so this is where the information comes from and is directed from in the body. Traditional medicine pretty much says that the brain is the sender of the information, but it's the sacrum that sends the information. It's the brain that disperses it.
So who put that in place? Who said that that was so, or who discovered that?
The man who developed this work, his name was John L. Hurley. He is the individual who built the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. He was the chief engineer.
Interesting. Going from bridges to the human body.
He just took those same principles that he applied to a steel girder and a beam, recognizing that if there was a weak link, that it was only as strong as this weakest link. And so the pieces in the bridge could be replaced, whereas the structural integrity of the body becomes diminished when the sacrum is displaced. We have 34 direct attachments to sacrum ilium. So if you have an injury, a car wreck, a motorcycle wreck, falling out of a tree, getting thrown from a horse, there's a myriad of different ways that we can displace the sacrum. Immediately on, everything defers to the information that's sent by the sacrum. So it begins to basically, the body's primary function is self-preservation. Mm-hmm. So what the body begins to do is to keep you functioning at your optimal level, no matter what you've gone through to get you to where you are at this point in time. Mm-hmm. And that's its job. Even at the expense of itself, that's what this does.
So the sacrum is there's an intelligence? I mean, there is it to say there's a nervous system, there's an energy system that starts from there? What is it? What is it?
Exactly. The central nervous system, the body is electrical first, it's chemical second, and it's magnetic third. When the electrical flow in the body is harmonious, you have basically 144,000 of these figure-8 flow energies in the body that are supposed to resonate harmoniously with each other, sending information from one place to the other. When the sacrum gets out of alignment, what happens is the body holds onto or builds up lactic, uric acids, and they become crystalline in nature. And these become a impedance to the flow of that energy. Have you ever walked into a room and forgot what you walked into the room for? Most people do. And they walk back to the place where the original thought came from. And they go back and they go, okay, it was right here and the thought came here. Normally when you remember what it was is when you're on your way to the store and you realize you left the shopping list on the counter. The body still is able to get the information. However, what happens is that as the signal is sent and it hits one of these blockages and occlusions, the body has to repattern and it has to redirect that energy until it can complete the circuit again.
So is it just in one application of it or one session, then all of a sudden the body restarts, or it's an ongoing process of assisting the body to do that?
My goal, Lila, is to do one alignment on an individual. My average is 1 to 3. I have not so many chiropractic friends because they'll send their patients to me, and after a session, they don't come back to the chiropractor needing their services because innate is already correcting the problem instead of treating the symptom.
So what happens when the patient is on the table? Is it like you're actually kind of with your hands going in some places of the body, like doing a kind of an energetic surgery, or what is it?
It's not energetic surgery. What it is these determinations are made by standing a person on a T-square. And this T-square has plumb lines to the side and to the back. And with measurement and co-measurement, it enables me to determine the exact center of balance in the body at that moment in time. Specifically, it's designed to be at the frontal aspect of the sacrum at lumbar 5. When the body gets displaced, the sacrum specifically, the body will take and move that energy down so that it puts the weight on the femur, which is the longest and strongest bone in the body. So where we find this center of balance in the body is where the gluteal fold or the buttock comes into the upper part of the thigh. It can range anywhere from the outside of one hip to the outside of the other. It's all contingent on measurement and co-measurement. Once we determine this center of balance in the body with a touch less than the weight of a dime, I'm able to move a person forward, sideways, and backwards. It doesn't matter if they weigh 80 pounds or 400. There's only one center of balance in the body at any given point in time. There's 3 directions that are then incurred that enable the body to bring itself back into balance. The primary direction is the contact point, which restores the center of balance to the sacrum. It takes the the hips that are up on the rotations, the forward tilt or the backward tilt of the pelvis, and basically restores that integrity. Then there's two other lines of drive, one of which removes the anterior of the body and puts the body back on the heels where it belongs, and the other which tells the upper back, the neck, the shoulders, the temporomandibular joint, the cranial plates, what they need to do as their part. So there's three distinct energy that basically they're created.
It's just that it felt. I did it in France while I was in France because you have a practitioner there, and just to
I
test.
do.
Yeah, very.
I have
very
several.
Nice. And it was very subtle. It's a very subtle process.
Yes, it's done with a touch, less than the weight of a dime.
That's why it feels sometimes that it's like on an energetic level, it's so subtle that our mind, I guess, is like, it can't be with that. It's trying to come up with some other thing.
Many people at the end of the alignment, they get off the table and they have no pain. The symptoms, quote, disappear. And then they look at me and they go, but you didn't do anything. And I tell them, you're right, I didn't. All I did was access your body's information, gave it a direction, and it has done the work.
So does this, on the cellular level, the body memorize things on the cellular level?
Yes.
That can be reprogrammed also for long-term.
Absolutely.
Change?
Yes. Now, what happens when they go through the process? Do you remember when you got off the table that everything was very soft? You were almost in an alpha state.
Yeah.
The crystalline nature that you had in your shoulders and your neck and the other things that were going on in your body at that time had changed significantly enough for you to have that awareness. And yet it took several weeks for everything to unfold. How long ago was it that you had this session?
That was a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago. So yes. I didn't really particularly pay, attention. I mean, I cannot tell whether it was that or something. I was not in pain particularly, so it was to test and see what it is and how it feels like. But I always had back problems. I'm very tall, so.
So how are they now?
Pretty good.
You're a genius.
I haven't tested and seen and checked the dates and all of that and how it is, because I do many other things, so it's hard sometimes to see where it's coming from.
What I like to do when I'm working with osteopaths or chiropractors, especially in France, England, I say, do your lab work, do your hair analysis, do your litmus testing, do your x-rays, do your blood work, and then just repeat everything 6 to 8 weeks after the process.
Wow.
You're a relatively young lady in your 30s.
Yeah.
Early 30s. And so I'm double your age. And so for you to go through an alignment process would take much less time than for me to go through an alignment process if we were both going through a first-time process, because my body has gone through more adaptive processes. And once the sacrum is displaced, the body immediately sends crystals and locks it there. And then the body adapts to compensate for that distortion. The difficulty is that for each adaptive process that the body goes through, everything internally gives up a portion of its rightful place in space to accommodate for that shift and change. And this is why we grow into the scoliosis, the lordosis, the kyphosis, the chronic fatigue, the Epstein-Barr, the candida, the migraine headaches, etc. The dis-ease conditions in the body that become chronic over time.
The body sends crystals.
The body doesn't send them. The body creates them every day. And there's an ideal scenario that we like to call a stress relax cycle in the body. Stress relax is kind of the same as a baby. They wake up, they eat, they play, they talk, they eat again, they do their little thing, and then they lay their body down and they rest. And as they're resting, all of the lactic, larco, and acids that are created in that time frame are released. In us, what happens when they're not able to be released, the body stores them and uses them as a support mechanism. So it uses them to create bunions and corns and calluses and various tensions and torsions on connecting tissue, contractual muscles, tendons, ligaments. And at some point, some of them get more than stressed, and the multiple stresses that equal to strain cause pain. And so that's when the body is able to give us information that we need to do something to make a shift or a change.
So why now is it called the Aquarian age healing?
In the Piscean age, the Aquarian age started in about 2001. The Aquarian age is the paradigm shift. It's the quantum awareness that many new things are coming into perspective now. And although this work was developed and created from 1929 to 1934, I believe that Dr. John Hurley had a vision with this work. So much, in fact, that he took 5 years to develop it and then presented it to the American Medical Association. He did 190.
What did the American Association did?
They sent him patients that he knew nothing about. And basically, he was able to determine with a 94% accuracy, Lilou, of what was manifesting in their body as a result of the stresses and strains, which was causing strain on the organs and systems. Because of this accuracy in his assessment and him being an engineer and not a doctor, he was told by the association to no longer do this work. He refused to stop it. They arrested him, put him in jail, and he appealed the lawsuit in Colorado, and he actually won the lawsuit. He then got sued by the chiropractors of the day, became a chiropractor, trying to show them, I'm not trying to undermine you, I'm trying to put another tool in your toolbox. This is something that may enable you. He also won that lawsuit. So there's precedent set for this work, but basically after 5 years in the court system, it's pretty much been used behind closed doors for about 75 years.
So has it never been really recognized?
I would say that now is much more than ever before, because now people are looking for results more than they are multiple treatments. I know the way that I came into this work, Lilou, I injured my back. I got blown from a roof, 28 feet, hit the concrete, punctured a lung, cracked my skull, broke my wrist, and then 3.5 years later, injured my back in a backhoe accident. I wore a back brace for 3.5 years. I was told in the beginning that if I didn't have surgery, that I would be in a wheelchair within 6 months. Mm-hmm. And I kind of opted out of that because I'd worked at orthopedic hospital in Los Angeles for 4 years, observed the surgical procedures and the time frame that it took for even children to heal. At that time, I was in my early 30s. And I opted not to do the surgery, and I started researching other modalities holistically: foot zone therapy, reflexology, massage, rolfing, cranial sacral, acupuncture, acupressure. And I was actually doing chiropractic therapy twice a day for 3.5 years. Each time that I got a session from the chiropractor, without his help, I would not have been able to work. But I would work one day, and then the next day I was not able to work. So I'd get up in the morning, go to the chiropractor, work a day, finish my day, go see the chiropractor. At the end of the day, I would just crash and burn. Basically, I was running off my adrenal energy. And so doing this for a period of years, the adrenals are basically to be used for an emergency, but I was living off of them. So what happened was 3 years and 3 months later, I went back to the physician, and I was kind of at my wit's end because they kept giving me labels, and they could tell me what they had, what I quote had, but they couldn't tell me how to correct it. So I had a interesting day at the chiropractor where he broke my sternum, and I had an aha moment. And that aha moment basically told me that muscles are stronger than bones. And I didn't have that awareness prior to that occurring. I just thought, well, if I can get an adjustment, it's going to help me to go another day. And it was a day-to-day cycle for me. But I did foot zone therapy. I did many, many modalities, each of them taking me to a different level, but none of them really enabling me to get out of my back brace. My wife had to pull me up into my armpits for me to get off of the toilet. I couldn't get out of my chair without my wife pulling me up into my armpits and putting my back brace on. Very humiliating at that age. And so basically I screamed at God in the middle of a parking lot, and I said, if you're trying to get my attention, you've got it right here, right now. And 3 days later, went to my friend's health food store, and this lady gave me this man's phone number who was able to do this work on me. In 3 hours and 28 minutes, I was out of my back brace. So I've got 8.5 years of college. I got 22 years in the medical field. And I was dumbfounded because I couldn't hardly walk down to where this man's place was, and yet I left my back brace there. And it was astounding to me enough that I told him, I really don't know what you did. I had no idea what he did at that moment in time. I just said, but whatever it is, I need to learn it. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care where I have to go. I'm in. And he basically told me that he wasn't teaching it at that moment in time. And I said, if you ever teach this work, I want to know. Mm-hmm. And so 4.5 months later, he called me, said he was teaching a class, and that was 25 years ago.
Wow. So now, so how did that evolve since then? I mean, since you have been instructing it, is that also evolved, and this is why now it's called the Aquarian age, or is it?
That was the original
more
name.
Receptive now, you think, to these kind of healings?
That was the original name given to the work by Dr. Hurley in 1929. Okay. So I think that he was a real visionary. Not only was he a master healer, but he was a visionary that was way before his time. And even though he was able to present this to the powers that were to be at that moment in time, and even though they could acknowledge the shifts and changes that happened as a result of it, they felt somewhat threatened, as did the chiropractic of the day. And I still think to some extent today, I used to go try to convince, let me give me the worst 3 patients you've had in the last 10 years, observe me for a day, call me 6 weeks from now and tell me if you're interested in learning this work. Well, the patients didn't come back, Lilou. And that, to me, is the proof that's in the pudding. If it is that profound, and I have over 12,000 clients under my belt, you know that I have a pretty...
So what is it most effective for?
It's most effective for any type of chronic diseased condition. The body has 4 cycles it can be in. The stress relax, and then it goes from the stress relax to the stress. It will go from the stress to the stress strain, and then the stress strain to the strain cycle. In each of these, there is an awareness that the body is able to give us information, but there also are degrees of crystallization that occur internally. The first would be ticklish, then tender, then sore, then painful, then numb. And then from that point, it becomes atrophy, degeneration, and of course, the last degree of crystallization in the body is death. So obviously, we can't bring anybody back from that. But I've worked with a gentleman down in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico who is numb at 95% of his body 10 days ago. Hadn't had a good night's rest in many, many years. Got an email from his wife yesterday, said that he's doing much better. He's in pain, but it's moving around. And so what I explained to her was very simple. The body goes so that it can able to resolve this from numb to pain to sore to tender to ticklish, and then eventually it will clear. But if the body does all of this in a single moment in time with one adjustment, like a chiropractor would do, it would make the body so sick so fast that it wouldn't be able to handle it, and they would go into what's called a Lilou effect, is a crisis management scenario. And I think the body doesn't really necessitate that, because innate knows as you go into the process what you can handle from day to day. So at the end of this alignment process, basically we set a contact point, kind of the same as putting your car on cruise control. You get on the highway and you're going from Chicago to Memphis, you push cruise control on, you get up to speed. When you get up to speed, you push set. What happens then? It maintains a steady speed. If you go up a hill, then the accelerator goes down to accommodate. If you go down a hill, the accelerator lets up. It maintains that same integrity of direction and speed. Your job is just to keep it flowing on the road. So you do the steering part. Well, it's the same way with the body as it's going through the process, and innate is in charge. Basically what it says is this: I give the body the information. You've done a great job with what you started, but you've not completed the process. Please complete it. The body will then give itself permission to release layers of these crystals, which is the contractural muscles that holds the cables on the spinae erectae, here up here in the clavicle and in the neck. And as it reduces those, what happens is the body becomes more flexible and fluid and less rigid. So the energy is able to flow.
You're right. And then does the patient records other benefits from it, such as more intuition or some other things? Additionally to their physical realignment, do they experience some other levels of well-being and of...
Always. We have 5 bodies. We have a physical body, an astral body, a mental body, an emotional body, and a spiritual body. And they're connected. So what affects a part of you affects the whole of you. So there's no one single thing that isolated that happens in one place that doesn't collectively happen to the whole of you. And so gradually over time, pain will remove your joy, your body's ability to relax and to have its own harmonious balance. But its job again optimally is self-preservation. So if it has a distortion or distortions that aren't corrected, a lot of people have been in a lot of car wrecks, or they've had a lot of injury because of the extreme sports and things that a lot of children and young adults are doing today. Those injuries compound on each other until eventually the body gives enough information that the pain gets strong enough that they have to begin to start paying attention to it.
So it does liberate some other things in a person.
It liberates many things. It liberates the alignment process, enables the body to become less crystalline in nature. It allows the mind to be softer. It allows the heart to open up. It enables the things that shut the heart down: worry, fear, anger, grief, pretense. It's not the grief, but it's the holding on to it, which is the more we get wound up inside, the more difficult it is for us to express to other people what we're feeling, because we're the one that's going through the process. And unless you, for instance, would go through what I'm going through, there's no way that I could explain it to you. You're unique as an individual, and as that uniqueness is exactly the same as you proceed through an alignment process, your body is going to go through something that is totally unique to the experience that you've gone through to get you to where you are. So I've done over 12,000 of these alignment process, none of them been the same. It's the most incredible work.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time to share with us all this information, and we can be aware of it. Where are you based?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to present it, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Tell me just one more thing. Where are you based?
I live in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And if people want more information on this work, they can go to my website, which is www.aquarianagehealing.com, or you can just Google William Wethern, and you can find the information on Google. There's several of my clients have put information up on there that will kind of explain the process, and then if they have any questions, they can call me. The cell phone and the information is all on my website.
Thank you, William.
Thank you so much, Lilou. I appreciate the opportunity.